Welcome back to What Would You Ask podcast. My next guest, one of those people that jumped on the prophet, Marcus Lemonis. They said, let's see if this guy's for real. Let's bring him into our business. One of my favorite episodes. And I don't say that a lot because I don't want to, it's not political. I don't want to pick one side or the other, but this was a good one, right? Family business. They had a really good product. Ashtae. Remember Ashtae? Beauty supplies, beauty products. And they worked, right? Marcus Lemonis has only got like 3/4 hair in the back. He got done and he was like, he's like, it's definitely softer. He was like, wow, he was blown away by it. And then every place he went. And let me tell you something. The best part of the show was the family. I mean, the best part of it.
Oh,
Michael is a machine. The guy's a machine. I love it. Michael, he's going to do a presentation. This lady runs out. She wants him to fix like the dryer or something. He's like, it is my tenant. And Marcus is like, I'm going to kill him if he goes with it. But anyway, it was just so cool to see. And I got Taylor. I got Taylor who's coming in, and we got some really cool announcements about what Taylor's doing today. And I'm excited to talk to her about that at the end. But I want to take her through the journey. So let me give her a proper introduction as I keep talking and talking. She's like, did you bring me here for any reason? She appeared on the CNBC hit show, The Prophet, season 4. Taylor Woods, welcome to What Would You Ask podcast.
hey, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I really cannot wait to get into the content today we're going to be talking about.
Great. I'm glad you're here as well. Our listeners and viewers love to hear about what's the real deal. Not that it shows, a lot of these shows are amazing. I mean, we've done Survivor Series, Amazing Race, Shark Tank. We've had over 100 entrepreneurs from Shark Tank. And everybody says, there's nothing really, they edit, of course, but the editing, kind of could shape the story a little bit, but there's nobody saying, hey, say this or do that or any of that kind of made up stuff. It just wouldn't fly with the audience, and the audience is too smart these days to let that happen. But for example, our first question, and we got a bunch of these, so I have to ask is, when did you first meet Marcus? Was it actually the time that he came onto your complex, if you will, the big giant building you have there? Tell us a little bit about meeting him for the first time.
Yeah, the first time we met him was when he came into the building. This was for filming. So, you go through the application process and you're talking with all of the different network people and the crew and the cast and all the people who need you to sign 1 million documents. Right. But you don't actually speak with him. And it literally, the crew got there and they were setting up and they let us know, hey, he's coming. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. But it wasn't until he walked in, cameras are rolling, that he walked in and then we met him. Like, it's not like, oh, we meet and then they roll cameras and okay, let's restage that meeting. No, it's the cameras are rolling and he walks in and that is us meeting him for the first time.
That's pretty cool. What did your family do? What was the reason? And was it your mom that applied to the Prophet, or was it Michael, or was it yourself? And tell us what the reason was. Where was your business? I mean, you had a good business. It was kind of like your father just wanted to, when your father, by the way, walks into the room with all the speakers and stuff, and you say, that's for our TV station. I mean, I just lost it because he's like one of those entrepreneurs that has to be continually challenged, right? I don't look at it as a guy that's confused, right? I just look at it as a guy that's going, I can do that, and I can do that. And it was just like a TV station. And then Marcus says, well, how much did you put into this? And he says $250,000. And you and your mom like, what? What? Are you?
Oh God, no! I still, like, looking back, I still can't believe he said that little, like, no, it was like hundreds of thousands, if not upwards of $1 million. Like, it was not a small venture. This was, this was a completely separate company that was bringing in like significant revenue. We're not talking about a, mom and pop bringing in 10,000. Like, this was a legitimate television station on cable television reaching millions of viewers. So and the fact that he downplayed that, I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing.
So I walked over my question. So who called into or applied to the Prophet, and what was the reason for that application?
Yeah, so it was actually my sister. My sister does not work in the business. At the time, I don't remember where she was working. She was I think she was working for Google at the time. But she knew that my parents they are just really, really hard workers. They are old school, uh, just, donkey on the treadmill, or I'm really bad with those cliches, whatever the thing is that just, they are just going to grind it out forever. And me, I come from a different generation. I just don't want to work that hard. I'm a millennial. I want to reap all the benefits with half the work. Okay? It's just the complete truth. So for me, I came in with all these bright ideas and we were clashing over those first few years of me working there. I, as their daughter, I'm tired of seeing them work this hard. And my sister, not even being in the business, seeing it from the outside, she was tired of us working this hard. And so she felt like she needed to get help for us. And that's why she applied for us to be on the Profit.
That's awesome. That's a
Yeah.
great story. And by the way, Ashley and Taylor make up Ashtae. So
Yes,
if you were wondering
exactly.
where that came from, which is also pretty cool. Give us a sense before we get into the meat of it and Marcus arriving and then how it takes through the journey. And I want to really talk about your interactions with him, with the trade show, and then coming back for the rebranding, which was awesome. I want to talk to you a little about those things, but take us through a little bit of the timeline. I'm amazed. We've talked with probably upwards of 18 to 20 so far, and we're in the middle of our Profit series taping it. The timeline is like amazing. It's like could be months and months and months with him coming back and coming traveling and blah, blah, blah. Tell us a little bit about your time and what are the days like when he is there as far as taping and all of that? How does it work?
Okay, so I remember it started in the fall. The exact month, I don't remember. I think it was maybe October, November. And I think the first time he physically came, it was maybe December. Yep. It was December of 2016. Because at the time, in that same month this had happened, to be quite honest, is the same time I decided that I was quitting. And I had moved out to California.
Wow.
The Monday after Thanksgiving. I mean, shipped my truck out there, was renting a room from this girl, my dog, my clothes, everything. Like I was gone. And then December, get a call that he's coming. And they're like, they want you here. Okay, flew back. And, it was just that initial shock. January, it was Memorial Day. No, it was MLK weekend that he came again. And I remember this because it was a big thing again. Like, hey, they want you to come back. And I had decided in the beginning of January around my birthday that I decided, okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to work in this family business, but we need to come to some agreements about how this is going to work, because in a family business, there's just interesting dynamics between the family and the business part and my personal life and being a daughter. There's just a lot. It can get very, very intense. So I had already decided that I was going to come back. And so bought the ticket to fly to California MLK weekend, and we filmed that weekend. And I remember that was the day he gave me this assignment. It wasn't that full part that we shot wasn't even cut into the, but he gave me this assignment to renovate 3,000 square feet of our office within 14 days. And he said, you have 2 weeks. You have a budget of, I believe it was $30,000, which is not a lot for 3,000 square foot of space. And it needs to look fabulous. So thank God I brought my dog with me on that flight, because I never even made it back to California. He came back maybe a little bit, maybe 16 or 18 days later. So it was like the end of January, first week of February, to make sure that everything had actually been done, that the renovation had been done, that the budget had been met, all of that. So it was crazy. I mean, that weekend, MLK weekend, we shot. He left. Some of the crew came and checked on me during the renovation process and got footage then. And then he came back February to see the final renovation. We went to Chicago at some point, I honestly cannot remember. It was cold. We went to Chicago. We went to, he met my dad in New York to meet
Mm-hmm.
our new co-packer.
Mm-hmm.
Where else did we go? Oh gosh. There was at one point we flew on his plane and we were in Charlotte. I don't remember where we were coming back from, but there it was a maybe 6 or 7 month long. The
Wow.
relaunch wasn't until March of that year, March of 2017. And I think that was the final piece that they shot. And then the episode played in June. He came back. He went to a trade show. Um, he went with us to Atlanta as well. But it was from, November, December until March of the following year of filming here and there.
And when he's there, is he spending an hour with you, 3 hours, 6 hours, or whatever it takes? I mean, is it kind of just spending the day and they're filming the whole day, or is there a method to the madness? I know sometimes you had meetings, like you said, obviously the New York is a setup thing, not that it's fake. I'm just saying it's planned event. They know it's going to
Right.
be a meeting, so it's taped. But how does that work? Does he just come to town? Like when he took a ride with your dad, he knows he's going to some meetings. That's kind of planned. Is he ever hanging around the office? I can't imagine that being the case. Is that
No,
okay?
definitely not. It's definitely purposeful,
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that MLK weekend. It was okay, I have an assignment for you. And the caveat to that assignment was that I was not allowed to ask my dad for help. It turned out to be, this great learning lesson that
Was that filmed on, did we see that? The
no,
renovation? Oh, I was going
no,
to
I
say.
mean it was filmed. It was all filmed, but it wasn't in the final
Got it.
edit. But that was like 3 weeks of working with him. So that's what I mean by there's just a lot that you don't even see
Right.
in the process. The process of changing our logo. After we went to VSA Partners in Chicago, okay, we have this new logo. It's beautiful. Do you know what it's like to change 27 products in 3 different sizes to a new logo? With new colors, new bottles, new packaging, new screen printing, new barcodes. And on top of that, right? Like it was February we went to Chicago. On top of that, he wanted all of the new packaging to be ready for our relaunch in March. I mean, a 30-day turnaround on packaging and screen printing of 27 different items in 3 different sizes. It was I can't even describe to you the amount of work it was off camera to make everything happen.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about 3 or 4 things. The meeting with your parents and Marcus, as far as you becoming a COO, you had that discussion in one of the rooms there. And then you had, we got to talk about the red and green Post-it notes that you had to put on. That was kind of funny. And then I want to talk about your trade show assignment and then the relaunch. I think those are really cool. So talk about, you mentioned this whole discussion about you and where your position is in the business. Your mother actually, Ramona said early on, I think it was right away when Marcus asked, well, what's your actual title? And your mother said, she's kind of in limbo right now, right? She's kind of deciding if she's in or out. So that was part of the story before Marcus even arrived, right? Because you said you kind of made your decision. You're heading out to California, and then you're kind of pulled back into the business a little bit. When you sat down, is that a real meeting? You're sitting down to have that discussion?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. There, you could honestly, that is probably the scene that I hate the absolute most because I was just crying so much. I was like, why did they have to put this on camera? Why? Of all the things they could have cut that out for me personally. But yes, it was a very, very real conversation. And I think it was so emotional because of all of the backstory. Like I had been full-time with the company since 2014. Obviously, I've been with the company since, for years, since I was a little girl, but as a full-time employee since 2014. So it was 3 years of fighting of, old way versus new way. It was a lot of emotion there at that meeting.
It was interesting that, you can tell that Marcus has a lot of respect for you. He also thinks you're very capable because he keeps putting things to you. If he didn't think you're capable, you would probably be a very minor role in that show, right? Your
Yeah,
reason you're
true.
one of the people that is continually on it and checking in. I mean, look, your father, you know this better than anybody. Your father in any room is going to, the president can walk in the room with your dad. He's going to be second fiddle. I'm telling you right now, just how your father is. I know people like that. And yeah. So, but anyway, speaking of that, let's talk about the post-it note project that you guys all went on. That seemed like it could be really fun, and of course, your father had to make it the most fun because he didn't want to throw anything away. I mean, he just didn't want to.
Oh God.
Tell us about that event.
That's so funny because I literally just last weekend I told him, I said, "You're a little bit of a hoarder." And I said, because we were cleaning out a closet in his basement. And he's like, "No, you have to go through this stuff." And I'm like, "We haven't opened this closet in like 8 years. Like all of this stuff is trash for all I care." He's like, "No, we need to go through it." And it was like flashbacks to that post-it moment. Like, oh my God, here you are again trying to keep things we do not need to keep. But yeah, I mean, that was a little bit emotional. I think that part was emotional for him, letting go of all of that. You know, as an entrepreneur, you take a lot of risks. And the television station was definitely a huge risk. And finally letting go of the things that we had physically invested in was very hard for him. But of course, him being his jovial self, you know, he tried to make it fun and lighthearted and all this stuff. But luckily, I did take over that behind the scenes, and I got rid of a lot of that stuff. I was like, okay, this is enough. Like, enough is enough.
So let's go to the trade show. Marcus asked you to do the trade show. I didn't think it looked bad. I think that the sign should have been higher up, but I mean, he kind of went in with, you know, the energy's dark, the room is dark, the stage is too small. For some people, every show has to. I'll give you an example. I just had a conversation with Charlie Handy from Swim by Chuck Handy, which were on the Profit, and Charlie was the kid of the dad who was the designer of bathing suits. They were for, you know, bathing suits. And Marcus gets on Charlie just like he did you. And Marcus gets on Charlie. Charlie fails early. He hires two assistants to help him out because Marcus gives him so much. And then his assistant tells him, he's like, well, he's getting it done because you hired two assistants. And Marcus is like, well, you did what? But anyway, then he actually does a trade show and blows it out.
Yeah.
Your trade show, he wasn't excited about, but then you came back and that you put you in charge of the relaunch and you killed it. I mean, tell us about both of those.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the trade show, I did what I could with the resources we had at the time. And it was pure madness. The trade show happened maybe a week or two after he just had me finish a 2-week renovation of our 3,000 square foot office. Okay. Like the concrete was not even finished drying. Like that's how quickly this trade show happened. So it was pure madness. Okay. Secondly, if you look back at our previous trade show setup, this was a huge improvement.
Yeah, you said that to him. And he's like, oh, geez. Imagine what it must have looked like.
I know. Looking back, I'm like, wow, like that does not look good. We've come a long way. And I mean, with his help, we got a new trade show display that is like the trade show display of my dreams, which is great. Yeah. Trade shows aren't happening anymore, so that sucks. But at the time of using it, 2017, 18, and 19, it was beautiful. So that is what I could do with the resources and time I was given. Okay, to get anything better than that, I would have had to have a 6 to 8 week lead time, and I did not have that. I had like 10 days. Okay. But with the relaunch, it was from the trade show until the party. And that was maybe 3 to 4 weeks. So I had a little bit more time, and I love planning events. I love orchestrating projects. And so I decided to just run with it. And with that, we all really, really worked as a team. Me, my parents, clients, we got everybody involved, and we all chipped in our resources and our ideas to make it all happen. I didn't have to fight with my parents about this or that. We all just recognized each other's strengths and we made it happen. So that was the really big difference there.
Yeah, that was well done. That was cool to watch and product. I
It
mean,
was
just
a
to,
great
yeah,
event.
it really was. It really was. So your parents ended up with a deal for 300,000 for 25%. Your father just wanted, and your mother were both saying, it just didn't seem right, and they really negotiated, a fair deal. And you look at some of Marcus' deal where it's always 50 or 51%. You're talking about, an infusion of cash to help you out, pay some of the vendors, get some of the new product redone for product development. He really made some impacts, as you mentioned. Tell
Hmm.
us a couple things. What is your relationship with Marcus today? Is there no involvement anymore? Tell us a little bit about the relationship post the profit.
So I can't speak for other companies, but as far as us, Marcus is a really great resource to have. And he really lets us do what we want to do and what we need to do with the company. There's not this hand holding, there's not this overseeing or direct management of the company. There's not that. He really lets us fly our wings, and should we need assistance in a certain area, okay, he's nothing but a call or an email away.
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. Before we get into what's going on with you today, I want to ask about your parents. How's Michael and Ramona? Everything doing? They're doing all right?
Yeah, my mom is still the CFO and handles the financials, and she has help, someone who we actually hired, I think, around the time of us being on the profit. She's still with us to this day, which is great. And my dad has stepped down to pursue all the other ventures that he wants to do, which is great.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I was really excited to see an article somewhere that said in January of 2020, Michael and Ramona have made their 27-year-old daughter Taylor the company CEO. Congratulations, Taylor, on that.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you. Thank you so much.
that's awesome. I mean, that's just a real vote of confidence in that. And by the way, I don't know if Marcus played a role or acknowledged it or whatever, but he is, part of the company, he's a partner, right? So, I mean, to make that says a lot about you is my point.
Yeah, I'm honestly I'm honored, I'm grateful. This year I think has been a test of my resilience and a test of my capabilities, because nobody expected, when we were making plans for this, we started announcing it to our staff and to our close team of clients back in December. And then we announced it, formally in January, but nobody expected at that time for a pandemic to hit and for salons nationwide to be closed for 10 weeks out of the year. So this has definitely been a test of what I can do as far as keeping the company afloat in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah. Have you had to pivot to more e-commerce approach in this and maybe widen the geo as far as demographic of who you sell to, or how have you got through this, or is it just your customers are still you're still able to rely on them because they're still you're still serving them?
I will tell you, despite everything that's going on, this year has proven even more than ever before, one, how loyal our customers are, as well as the quality of the products and the systems that have been put in place over the past few years. There have been a few things that have helped us keep afloat, and one would be our online webinars. We started doing online education last year, and thank goodness we did. We had our clients watching Zoom and webinars last year, so we had a lot of online content that we could use and repurpose this year, even when we couldn't do in-person education. The second thing is we did a lot of education for our customers on how to pivot during the pandemic. we did a series called Surviving a Crisis. We did a series called Pivoting During a Pandemic, where we really helped them secure loans to the SBA or their banks, or we helped them on how to sell retail when they were closed. So during that, 8 to 10 week period where New York was shut down, or really everybody was shut down at some point, we were encouraging salons to sell retail to their clients, go door to door, drop off service, meet them in the Walmart parking lot. Who cares? But honestly, that made a huge difference. So while our back bar sales, which is like gallon and 32-ounce size items, while those sales went down, our retail sales skyrocketed, and that's what maintained us during those months of shutdown.
Final couple questions from me. How would you summarize your experience on the Prophet and with Marcus? Was he really vital to your business and getting it on track? You seem like you had a great product. Could you have done it without him? Tell us a little bit about it.
I definitely think it was vital to our business and to our path. Not just because of the resources that he provided, but because he was able to speed up the timeline of certain things we knew needed to change. It's because you are filming for television. It's not things that would have normally taken a year. It's not going to take a year. It's going to be done within 3 to 6 months. So things like changing the logo, changing all the products, changing it over to a new co-packer. These are things that would have taken years to transition over. And some products did take years. But for the most part, we were able to get it done under a very, very short time frame. And I think that was extremely vital to our success, that we were pushed to make the changes that we would not have made otherwise, or that it would have taken a much longer time for us to make.
It seems like, well, I can say it during the Shark Tank series that continues today. We're still having Shark Tank interviews. There's a family of Shark Tank entrepreneurs. They actually use each other for different resources, whether it's shipping international or using a co-packer or finding one. They definitely use resources. Is there similar kind of resource pool of the Prophet entrepreneurs?
Like, is there a group chat or a Facebook members group? Not that I'm aware of. If there is, I would love to be a part. And I definitely think there should be. I remember in that year after the Prophet, I was like, oh man, Marcus should have like a Christmas party for all the Prophet people. Right. Or, some sort of party or gathering so we could all meet each other, because it's a lot. I will say, if there is something that we need from someone, we reach out either to Marcus or to the person directly. So there is like a connection there. As far as, the people who built our trade show booth is someone else who's been on the Prophet, who's located out of Pennsylvania. So
got it. You mentioned a lot about the business, but I want to give you a chance to tell everybody anything new with the business, what's going on with it today. We're still in, unfortunately, the hold of this pandemic, but tell us what's going on with Ashtae today.
Yeah, so today we are still rocking and rolling. We have not stopped shipping. We have not closed our doors. Despite government shutdowns and everything, we have continued to send out products to our customers, which is great. And I really appreciate them for all of their loyalty and their support over the years. And especially this year, as we all get through this craziness that is 2020. But we are hoping that next year things were really able to, make some exponential changes. I'm grateful for the stableness, though, despite what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Well, Taylor, I really appreciate you joining us, taking us through the journey. I'm glad to hear, and congratulations on all the success through, some of the worst times in our lives, to be honest with you, this pandemic. It's really, really nice to hear that you're doing well. Please say hello to your mom and dad. They were a big part of that show, and it was, you could see the work ethic from both of them. As a matter of fact, you cried about it. It was just like, I just want my mom to get a break. I mean, your father can do 50 jobs. We know that. He's got enough energy.
Oh, God.
But
there's no off button. It's crazy.
well, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
All right. We'll be back with more What Would You Ask podcast in a second.